Located near the Isle of Sheppey in Kent, England, lies an inconspicuous stretch of muddy swampland, known to locals and journalists alike as Deadman's Island. You cannot visit without authorized permission, and the island has been closed to the public, uninhabited for over 150 years. When you are given permission to visit the island, you're immediately greeted by a sight picked straight out of a horror movie, nicknamed Coffin Bay. Hundreds of open coffins covered with scattered remains welcome you with a macabre boldness hitherto unseen. Over countless decades and generations that have sprung forth since, the barren mudbank has, with its moss-covered rocks and hidden cracks and caves perfect for hiding in, inspired endless tales of ghoulish spirits and rabid dogs roaming the island, looking to ward off potential invaders. Some have claimed that the island is solely occupied by the deceased, which isn't surprising. It's fair to say that no one has ventured anywhere near the island since, with journalists only recently making the trip over, not out of choice, but out of necessity. The world needs to know about the tragic events that happened there. In fact, the terrible truth behind the island stems back to the conclusion of the Napoleonic Wars in 1814. Several naval ships, including the HMS Ganymede, were commandeered and converted into a floating prison, with steel bars, cells to hold hundreds of convicts, and squalid conditions. Conditions so bad that they became a breeding ground for diseases, with outbreaks of cholera widespread and uncontrollable. Alongside multiple diseases to deal with, the inmates were also subjected to poor food and drink rations, leaving 1 in 4 people to pass away out of 400. Because the passengers were inmates and therefore seen as subhuman by the guards, they were denied a formal burial. To prevent the cholera outbreaks from getting out of hand even more, the authorities had no choice but to dispose of the bodies of those contaminated on the closest bit of land they could find. This ad hoc disposal site just so happened to be the Medway mudflats, which would, as a result, later become known as Deadman's Island. It is believed by many researchers, scholars and journalists that the burials took place throughout the 1800s. Daff Charman, a historian and researcher who studied the island and wrote a book on it, claims burials were still happening there in 1845, with bodies originally buried in wooden coffins, placed in unmarked graves under 6 feet of mud, in isolated locations across the Medway. In 2016, the remains of over 200 of the inmates' bodies were found. Scholars believe that they were only discovered because of the tides of the Medway rising, washing the remains out to sea and redepositing body parts along the bay of the island. Though some argue that the bodies should be reburied in proper burial sites, the sea is unrelenting, and it's doubtful this will happen. Most of the lost souls abandoned there, along with Deadman's Island itself, will all succumb to the overwhelming ocean eventually. Scholars believe that they were only discovered because of the tides of the Medway rising, washing the remains out to sea and redepositing body parts along the bay of the island. Though some argue that the bodies should be reburied in proper burial sites, the sea is unrelenting, and it's doubtful this will happen. Most of the lost souls abandoned there, along with Deadman's Island itself, will all succumb to the overwhelming ocean eventually. Vozrozhdeniya Island. Nestled within the waters of the Aral Sea, Vozrozhdeniya Island serves as a poignant symbol of the intricate relationship between human advancement in scientific endeavors and the detrimental consequences of environmental neglect. Once a bustling hub for the clandestine development of biological weapons amidst the tension of the Cold War era, the island now exists in a state of abandonment, its barren terrain offering a stark portrayal of the perils associated with unbridled scientific exploration. The island's haunting silence speaks volumes about the potential hazards and ethical dilemmas that accompany unchecked scientific ambitions. Vozrozhdeniya Island, more commonly referred to as Renaissance Island, had its origins as a small, deserted landmass nestled in the Aral Sea, positioned between Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. During the mid-20th century, the Soviet Union grasped the island's strategic significance due to its isolated location, leading to its utilization as a hub for military experimentation and research endeavors. In the 1950s, a covert biological weapons facility dubbed Aralsk-7 was discreetly established by the Soviet government on the island, shrouding it in secrecy and further enhancing its enigmatic allure. This clandestine laboratory became a pivotal center for the Soviet Union's biological warfare initiatives, triggering a wave of intrigue and speculation surrounding its activities and the potential ramifications of its research. Vozrozhdeniya Island underwent a transformation into a significant center for studying biological warfare agents like anthrax, smallpox, and plague over the succeeding years. The strategic choice of the island's secluded position, harsh weather conditions, and sparse population rendered it a prime location for testing lethal pathogens and bioweapons delivery systems. The research facility established on Vozrozhdeniya Island purportedly engaged in extensive testing on animals, and shockingly, there are allegations of potential experimentation on human subjects as well. The island's remote setting facilitated the secretive exploration of these dangerous substances and advanced weaponry, raising ethical concerns and shedding light on the sinister possibilities that unfolded within its facilities. After the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, Vozrozhdeniya Island was deserted, marking the beginning of an era where the remnants of its sinister past came to light. The island bore the burden of a dark history, entangled with the remnants of biological warfare experiments and the haunting spectre of environmental degradation. Following abandonment, the once vibrant research facilities on the island were left neglected, falling into a state of disrepair as a poignant testament to the island's troubled past. Simultaneously, the Aral Sea, a body of water plagued by human intervention, witnessed a continued decline in its size as its tributaries were diverted for extensive irrigation practices. As the water levels of the Aral Sea gradually decreased, the receding waters unveiled a concerning sight: polluted soil and remnants of bioweapons research that had been carried out on the island. This revelation not only presented a significant threat to the environment, but also posed a grave risk to public health. The fear stemmed from the potential release of pathogens and hazardous substances into the atmosphere and water sources, thereby putting the nearby communities at risk of exposure. Despite the pressing need for remediation and containment of the island's toxic materials, progress has been sluggish, mainly due to the island's remote location and the lack of adequate resources allocated to such endeavors. These challenges have impeded effective cleanup efforts and heightened the urgency of addressing the environmental and health hazards posed by the remnants of the bioweapons research. Vozrozhdeniya Island, located in the Aral Sea, is a place veiled in enigmatic tales and disputes, leaving a multitude of unanswered queries lingering concerning the events that transpired there during the Cold War period. Notorious for allegations of conducting unethical experiments on human subjects and speculations about accidental outbreaks of perilous pathogens, the island's dark past continues to captivate minds with its aura of mystery and intrigue. Uncovering the full scope of the research activities carried out on Vozrozhdeniya Island poses a daunting challenge, given that a considerable portion of the pertinent records and corroborating materials have either been misplaced or intentionally obliterated. This eerie backdrop has perpetuated an ongoing fascination with the island's legacy, sparking deliberations on the hidden truths that may have been buried amidst the sands of time. Persistent concerns linger regarding the enduring ramifications on both the environment and public health following the extensive biological weapons testing that was carried out on the island. The contamination caused by the release of hazardous substances and disease-causing agents into the neighboring ecosystem, in conjunction with the continuous deterioration of the Aral Sea environment, has instilled apprehension regarding the possibility of contamination and outbreaks of diseases in the area. Ongoing endeavors are in place to monitor and alleviate these risks. However, it may take years to comprehend the full scope of the harm inflicted. The collective efforts to address these issues underline the complexity and gravity of the challenges faced in safeguarding the environment and health of the populace in the region. Vozrozhdeniya Island stands as a stark reminder of the dark legacy of biological weapons research and the consequences of unchecked scientific pursuits. Once a center for military experimentation and secrecy, the island now serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of environmental degradation and the need for transparency and accountability in scientific endeavors. As we reflect on the history and legacy of Vozrozhdeniya Island, we must also redouble our efforts to prevent similar tragedies from occurring in the future, lest we repeat the mistakes of the past. So, what do you make of these mysterious islands? Be sure to leave your questions and answers in the comment section below and help us to grow this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.